Picture this. You are sitting on a beach in Bali.
Oh, with that perfect, algorithmic golden hour glow.
Exactly. You've got an iced matcha in one hand, your laptop is balanced on your knees, and you are just casually firing off emails.
Totally free from the corporate 9 to 5.
Right. You have hacked the system. You are living the ultimate heavily filtered Instagram fantasy. But then
The Wi-Fi
the
drops.
Wi-Fi drops, and suddenly you remember your tourist visa expires in exactly 48 hours.
The absolute panic of that.
Yeah, so you're frantically refreshing your browser to find a flight out, and this quiet, really uncomfortable realization creeps in.
Which is,
You haven't had a truly deep face-to-face conversation with a friend in like 6 months.
because the fantasy shatters under the weight of its own logistics. I mean, what looks like absolute frictionless freedom on a social media feed,
Right.
it often functions as absolute exhaustion in reality.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a hard look at the collapse of the endless laptop lifestyle.
It's a fascinating shift to watch happen in real time.
It really is. We're unpacking the economic and psychological realities of the digital nomad movement and exploring why that fantasy of constant travel is, fundamentally shifting.
Right, people are abandoning the endless backpacker routine.
Exactly. They're moving toward what's being called hub and spoke base camps. So we're going to look under the hood of internet flex culture to figure out why this remote work dream is just hitting a massive brick wall.
But before we pull the thread on this, a quick note for you listening. We are going to be touching on some pretty complex socioeconomic dynamics today.
Yeah, things like wealthy expats, flooding budget-friendly nations, localized inflation, global gentrification.
Exactly. And we're not here to take a political stance on whether these shifts are inherently good or bad. Our goal is strictly to impartially lay out what the research and the macroeconomic data actually show.
So you can evaluate the landscape for yourself.
Right.
So let's jump straight into the economics of this, because I look at these TikToks of people running marketing agencies from infinity pools in Thailand.
And you get a little jealous.
Oh, part of me is definitely jealous. But another part of me recognizes that this is a massive, deliberate re-engineering of the global economy.
It's not an accident.
No, destinations didn't just accidentally become hotspots. They aggressively built themselves to attract these remote wallets.
The data supports that completely. There's this comprehensive academic analysis we looked at, reviewing hundreds of web articles focusing on what they term smart destinations.
Right, locations that just kind of woke up a few years ago.
Yeah, they realized that digital nomads have a very specific, demanding set of infrastructure needs. And those needs are completely different from a standard tourist.
Or a traditional corporate traveler. I mean, a tourist just needs a hotel near a beach for 4 days.
Exactly. But a digital nomad needs high-speed, uninterrupted broadband. They need affordable long-term leasing, co-working infrastructure.
And specialized visa frameworks so they can stay for 6 to 12 months legally.
And the race to capture those specific wallets really kicked off with Estonia, didn't it?
It did. They launched a dedicated digital nomad visa back in 2020, allowing a 1-year stay.
And once they proved that model was lucrative,
So everyone jumped in. Dozens of other countries rushed to create their own versions. It's an entire industry built purely on geoarbitrage.
let's look at the mechanism of that geoarbitrage, actually, because it really is the engine driving this entire movement.
For those who might not know the term, how do you define it?
Geoarbitrage is simply earning in a strong currency like US dollars or euros while physically residing and consuming in a local economy with a weaker currency.
And a much lower cost of living.
Exactly. Your purchasing power basically multiplies overnight, and you don't even have to secure a raise or a promotion to do it.
This budget travel blog we've been reading breaks this down brilliantly. The author spells out the extreme economic disparities that make this so appealing to, say, a 25-year-old remote worker.
The numbers are pretty staggering.
They really are. I mean, a pint of beer is $8 in Singapore, but $2.50 in Prague. Right. Or an $85 standard train ride in Oslo gets you a luxury VIP bus ride all the way across Thailand for $36.
That's incredible.
When you apply that math to rent, food, and lifestyle, you are suddenly living like absolute royalty on a middle-class salary.
But that intense concentration of purchasing power creates massive localized hubs. It fundamentally alters the local landscape to cater to this new class of consumer.
The blog actually calls this a campus culture, which is both incredibly accurate and, honestly, a little terrifying.
How so?
Well, he maps it out like a university progression. So Chiang Mai, Thailand, is basically the freshman dorm of online business.
Ah, right. It's where you go to start your first dropshipping store or travel blog.
Exactly, because the barrier to entry is just so low. Then once you're making a bit more money and you want better restaurants, slightly different infrastructure, you move to Medellin, Colombia.
Which is like moving off campus.
Right, the moving off campus option for established expats.
And the physical manifestation to this hub culture can be extreme. Look at Bansko, Bulgaria.
Oh, the ski town.
Yeah, it transformed from a sleepy, highly affordable ski town into a massive remote work center. They recently hosted an 800-person Nomad Fest.
That is wild.
The craziest part is that nomads are snapping up $40,000 condos there.
Wait, to live in year-round?
No, that's the thing. They aren't integrating into the community at all. They are essentially using these condos as glorified storage lockers.
You're kidding.
Not. They sleep there during ski season, hit the co-working spaces, and then just travel the rest of the year.
See, that's what I mean. The economic model here feels incredibly fragile, treating entire countries like cheap freshman dorms where you extract the low cost of living and then leave.
It creates massive friction eventually. The data shows this.
Right. It feels like a global gentrification gold rush. I mean, is that actually a sustainable economic model for the host nations, or is it just a temporary loophole?
It's definitely a loophole that's closing. The economic advantage is already shrinking because that influx of foreign capital physically alters local real estate markets.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When expats with high-value currencies fled a concentrated area, landlords recognize they can charge triple the local rate for a short-term furnished rental.
And local prices inevitably spike to meet the new artificially inflated demand.
Which completely kills the geoarbitrage.
Right. Former budget havens like San Miguel de Allende or Los Cabos in Mexico, they're no longer cheap.
Not at all.
The influx of remote workers drove up the rent, which obviously creates entirely understandable local backlash.
And that forces the nomads to search for the next undiscovered town to exploit the arbitrage all over again.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. And that constant searching leads directly to the second massive point of friction, which is logistical burnout.
Because the physical act of endless mobility just becomes completely unsustainable.
Exactly. We review some corporate insights that explicitly analyze this. They note that constant travel completely disrupts the foundational routines required for deep work.
I can imagine. Trying to maintain a consistent work schedule across wildly shifting time zones
while dealing with unreliable infrastructure. It completely degrades your productivity.
Not to mention the pure administrative nightmare.
Oh, the life admin is brutal.
Right. Basic things you just take for granted. Setting up a dentist appointment, filing taxes across multiple jurisdictions, navigating international health insurance.
It becomes a complex, anxiety-inducing puzzle when you don't have a permanent address.
And then there's the visa issue, which is probably the most glaring physical barrier.
The border-run burnout.
Yes, because many of these nomads operate in a gray area on tourist visas, right? So they are legally required to leave the country every 60 to 90 days.
Just to get a stamp.
Yeah. The reality of packing up your entire life, taking a bumpy bus ride across a border, getting a stamp in your passport, and turning right around to come back.
It strips the glamour away very quickly.
Very quickly. Endless travel sounds like eating dessert for every meal. I mean, it's amazing on day 1, but it is nauseating by day 30.
That's a perfect analogy. So the arbitrage vanishes as prices rise, the administrative tasks pile up, and the travel itself just becomes a chore.
Which explains the massive pivot we are seeing in the data toward the hub-and-spoke model.
Because they aren't all flying back to cubicles in Ohio.
No, definitely not. Instead, they are establishing a semi-permanent base camp. They sign a long-term lease on a cheap apartment, maybe $300 to $500 a month in Vietnam or the interior of Mexico.
And they use that as the hub.
Exactly. And from there, they take short exploratory trips, which are the spokes.
Pragmatically, the hub-and-spoke model is an attempt to mitigate that logistical burnout. But, to truly understand why this shift is happening, we have to look past the economics and the physical exhaustion.
Right. There's a deeper layer here.
We have to look at the psychological brick wall the Nomad movement hit. These corporate insights explicitly flag profound isolation as a massive, critical challenge for remote workers.
They desperately miss the social interactions and support networks of traditional stable settings.
Right. The economic failure of the model forces a psychological reckoning. Let's bring in the psychology sources, specifically Abraham Maslow.
Okay, yes. We all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the famous pyramid.
Let's apply that pyramid directly to the laptop lifestyle.
The digital nomad uses geoarbitrage as a cheat code for the bottom of the pyramid. If you make New York money but pay Vietnam rent, your physiological needs and your safety needs are instantly secured on autopilot.
You don't even have to think about them. But where the lifestyle completely stalls out is Tier 3.
Tier 3, which is love and belongingness.
Yes, the psychological requirement for acceptance, deep friendship, intimacy, and roots.
And this tier cannot be hacked with a strong currency?
No, it cannot.
I can hear people yelling at their phones right now, arguing that co-working spaces solve this exact problem.
Oh, the standard counter-argument.
Right, the idea that you go to a hub like Lisbon, you pay for a hot desk, and you're suddenly surrounded by 100 like-minded digital nomads. Boom, instant community.
But that fundamentally misinterprets how human bonding works. Proximity does not equal community.
Say more about that.
True community requires shared vulnerability and long-term stakes. If you are sitting in a co-working space in Bali, and you know the person next to you is flying to Medellin in 3 weeks...
You don't invest.
Exactly. Your brain subconsciously refuses to invest the emotional capital required to form a deep, lasting bond.
It's essentially a rent-a-friend illusion.
It really is. You are paying for proximity to people, but you lack the shared long-term stakes that create actual roots.
So you just end up having the same superficial conversation 100 times.
Yep. Where are you from? What's your business niche? Where are you flying next?
Right. It provides the aesthetic of friendship without the psychological nourishment of true belonging.
And if you cannot satisfy Maslow's belongingness need, you can never progress to the top of the pyramid.
Self-actualization, the ultimate state of fulfillment.
You're permanently stuck.
This forces us to ask a much darker question, I think. If this endless travel fails to provide true belonging and actually actively prevents it, what are these people actually searching for? Why does the pursuit of ultimate untethered freedom leave them feeling so incredibly empty?
Our psychology sources provide a fascinating lens for this. We could look at the theories of psychoanalyst Erich Fromm.
Okay, Fromm, he's an interesting one.
He theorized that humans live in a constant, agonizing state of struggle. On one hand, we have this drive to be unique, free individuals.
Right.
But on the other hand, we have an inherent biological need for human connection and submission to a group.
So when a nomad separates themselves from their home community to become this perfectly independent, free entity, they basically trigger a biological alarm bell.
Precisely. Fromm argued that when we completely separate ourselves from the pack, it creates unbearable loneliness and chronic anxiety.
We are just terrified of true isolation.
We are. Fromm famously said that man's main task is to give birth to himself, to become his own authentic person. But he warned that the anxiety of separation often causes people to fall into non-productive personality types as a coping mechanism.
And the one that stood out to me from the reading was the marketing type.
Yes, the marketing orientation.
Fromm describes this type as someone who is obsessed with their image, constantly evaluating their choices based on reflected status. They essentially treat themselves as a commodity to be sold.
Now apply that to modern internet flex culture.
Oh, it is the exact definition of the Instagram nomad.
Isn't it?
They are sitting by the infinity pool, meticulously curating their aesthetic, selling the image of total freedom, but internally, based on Fromm's framework, they are crippled by the anxiety of separation.
And you're using the likes and the online courses to simulate the connection they abandoned in the real world.
Wow, that is bleak.
It ties deeply into Gestalt therapy, too, developed by Fritz Perls. Gestalt therapy emphasizes that true psychological health requires authenticity.
Finding the real you.
Right. Perls argued that truth can only be tolerated if you discover it yourself, and he urged people to find their authentic selves, rather than simply conforming to societal expectations.
The irony here is just so thick.
Oh, so.
The nomad identity started as the ultimate rebellion against conformity. The whole ethos was, I refuse to work in a cubicle, I refuse to buy a minivan, I refuse the standard script.
Right, rejecting the norm.
But it has morphed into its own incredibly rigid conformist trap. You must spend time in Chiang Mai. You must have an online coaching business. You must post photos of your laptop on a beach.
It's a formula now.
It's not freedom from conformity, it's just putting on a completely different uniform.
They traded one script for another without ever doing the difficult work of authentic self-discovery that Gestalt therapy demands.
They just bought off the rack identities.
Exactly. And we can track the mechanism of this failure using Kurt Lewin's change model. Lewin described psychological change in 3 necessary steps.
Unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. Let's walk through how that mechanism breaks down for the endless traveler.
Okay, so unfreezing is the process of breaking down your current mindset and assumptions. Nomads are incredibly successful at unfreezing from the corporate 9 to 5.
They accept that there's a different way to live.
Right. Then the second step is changing. This is the active process of trying new behaviors. For the nomad, this is the travel, the building of the remote business, the exploration.
But they skip the final step.
They completely abandon it. The critical third step is refreezing.
Which means what exactly?
This is the process of establishing a new, stable psychological state and integrating your new insights into a lasting foundation.
And you can't do that if you're constantly on the move.
Right. By moving every 30 days, changing time zones, and disrupting their social circles, nomads prevent themselves from ever refreezing. They trap themselves in a perpetual, exhausting state of transition.
It's like taking an ice cube out of a tray to make a new shape, melting it, and just leaving the puddle of water on the counter forever.
That's a great visual.
You have to put it back into a mold and actually refreeze it for it to have any structure. So this shift to the hub-and-spoke base camp model, is this the mechanism for refreezing?
It is.
Is this basically the only way out of Fromm's anxiety of separation?
Yes. By establishing a base camp, they are seeking what we might call strategic stability.
Yeah.
And to fully grasp why this is so effective, I want to pull an analytical framework from a seemingly unrelated source in our stack today.
Okay, lay it on me.
It's a military strategy paper regarding Cold War tactics.
Wait, I am very curious to see how you bridge the gap between an Airbnb in Portugal and Cold War military tactics.
Stick with me, because the underlying psychology of security is identical. The paper discusses nuclear ballistic missile submarines
Okay.
and the strategic concept of continuous at-sea deterrence. During the Cold War, maintaining strategic stability didn't mean constantly being on the offensive. It meant having an invulnerable, hidden second strike capability.
Right, the submarines hiding in the ocean.
Because these submarines were functioning as an invulnerable base, military leaders didn't have to panic and react impulsively to every minor radar blip.
The security of the base removed the anxiety of immediate reaction. If you know your core is safe, you don't live in a state of constant panic.
Exactly. If you don't have a secure base, you operate on a launch on warning status. You are highly reactive, constantly on edge, and easily exhausted.
Which describes the burned-out digital nomad perfectly.
Right. For a human being navigating the modern world, an invulnerable base is a home. It's a secure community, a long-term lease where you control the environment, a regular coffee shop where the barista actually knows your name and expects to see you on Tuesday.
So when Disney nomads adopt the hub-and-spoke model, they are establishing their own strategic stability.
They finally have a port to return to.
Because they have a secure psychological base, that apartment in Vietnam or Mexico, they can actually take those spoke trips. They can venture out into the unknown, take risks, experience the novelty of travel.
Without suffering the existential dread and anxiety that comes from being permanently unmoored.
The constant travel without a base isn't actually freedom. Psychologically speaking, it's just wandering in a state of high alert.
The base camp allows for the unfreezing and changing during the trips, but provides the necessary environment for refreezing upon return.
That perfectly synthesizes the entire shift we are seeing in the global data. I mean, it explains why the pricing trends we talked about are shifting behavior.
That aligns with the logistical burnout we noted.
And it perfectly maps onto the psychological warnings from Maslow and Lewin.
The data points to a singular conclusion. Constant, endless mobility is fundamentally incompatible with the deepest requirements of human psychology.
You just cannot sustainably override millions of years of evolutionary biology that demands community and stability.
So where does this leave you, the listener, as you navigate this changing landscape? Let's quickly recap the evolution of this dream.
It started purely as an economic hack. The undeniable allure of capturing a strong currency, finding cheap rent, and exploiting geographic arbitrage to live a luxury lifestyle on a starter salary.
But that economic hack hit a physical limit. The exhaustion of visa runs, the destruction of productive routines, and the sheer friction of navigating global administration without a home address.
It forced a behavioral pivot, and finally, it collided with the ultimate boss, human psychology.
The absolute, unshakable necessity of human connection, shared vulnerability, and a stable identity.
You cannot rent a deep friendship by the hour at a co-working space, and you cannot outrun the anxiety of isolation no matter how many passport stamps you collect.
The evolution from endless travel to the base camp model is a necessary, healthy course correction. It is a global acknowledgement that you cannot hack Maslow's hierarchy.
Which leaves us with a final, slightly provocative thought for you to mull over. For the better part of a decade, internet culture has relentlessly glorified the idea of being completely untethered.
We really framed attachment as a weakness and mobility as the ultimate success.
We did. But maybe the collapse of the endless travel fantasy isn't a failure of economics or a lack of discipline. Maybe it is a massive victory for human nature.
Humans were simply never designed to live permanently detached from community, shared stakes, and real roots.
The shift toward base camps is forcing an entire generation of remote workers to confront a profound reality. True freedom isn't the ability to go anywhere at any time. True freedom is having a meaningful reason to stay somewhere.
That is a powerful framework to view the future of work and life.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you next time.